It's not true that Tommy Robinson exposed this in the way he tries to pretend. And I'm also not sure that people in America fully understand who Tommy Robinson is or what his record is. I mean, I think he's done this, he's monetized his hatred of Islam. They just don't seem to understand that Robinson's criminal record is highly extensive and very unpleasant. So, you know, for 20 years, he's been breaking the law. He attacked an off-duty police officer. He led a hooligan group of football thugs in a brawl involving 100 people. He headbutted a man in Blackburn.
Piers Morgan has really got it in for Tommy Robinson. On every recent show on his channel, he goes off on a diatribe about what a horrible criminal lunatic Robinson is. He mentions how all that is evident when he last interviewed him. Well, let's listen.
Would you have a ban, like Donald Trump suggested in America, would you have a ban on Muslims entering the country, new Muslims trying to have a home in this country?
I believe we need to protect the British public right now.
So what's the answer to the question?
British Muslims?
Yeah, we need. Yeah, the British public. I didn't say British non-Muslim public.
Right.
I said the British public. We've had.
Would you ban?
We've had
Tommy,
three
you're a
terror
straight
attacks.
Talker.
Children are being killed.
Yes, we all know what's been happening.
Yes, I would. I would stop.
You would ban all Muslims.
I would temporarily halt Muslim immigration to this country until we get a grip of the problem. I differentiate Muslims from Islam.
Right.
Okay?
But what you don't do.
Differentiate Muslims.
Muslims are people. Islam is an idea.
Yeah.
Islam's an idea. A bad idea.
Islam is a faith.
No, it's an idea.
It's a faith.
It's an idea that you can change your mind.
No, it's a faith. Like Christianity.
Like Scientology.
Like all faiths.
Like
it's a religion, it's a faith.
Like Scientology. This book up and say, there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book.
That's what's wrong.
Can I tell you who said that? Can I tell you who said that?
Can you put the
Sir William Gladstone
said that. You wouldn't do that with
Sir William Gladstone.
Would you do that with the Bible? Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Have you read this book?
For people.
Have you read this book?
There are over a billion people.
There are 100 verses in this book that incite violence and murder against us.
Show some damn respect for people's religious beliefs, right?
I should show some respect for a book that incites murder against me.
Put it down.
And calls me an animal. No, I won't put it down. Sir William Gladstone held this book above his head in Parliament and he said there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book. Was Sir William Gladstone, who we have statues across our capital C, was he a bigot or an Islamophobe?
See, now
Winston Churchill.
You're sounding like a complete lunatic.
No, I'm quoting previous some of the best leaders in this country.
You're sounding like a bigoted lunatic.
No, I'm not.
All he did was wave the book in the air like this as he was talking. He didn't throw it. He didn't rip it. I'd hardly call that the ultimate act of disrespect. I've recently seen loads of comments online celebrating the recent New Orleans attack. Immigrants who have moved from an Islamic country to Britain or America for a better life, and here they are from within celebrating terrorist attacks. It seems perfectly sensible to think that maybe importing such people is not a great idea. On the contrary, it's madness. Nothing extreme about saying that or that we should put a halt on mass immigration. It's not our responsibility to take in anyone and everyone in the world.
And when people now play around with this and just throw in any old flavour, including really poisonous ones, things like people who believe that they can mass rape young girls because they are, to quote one of the judges in one of the cases of the grooming gangs, because they're easy meat. That is a poison added to the collective ice cream. And I don't see why it hasn't been possible for years to say, we don't want that particular strand of flavour. We don't want people who come with attitudes towards women which are at best 7th century. At best. We don't want it. And if you're going to come here, welcome. If you want to join into it, welcome. Be our guests, be our brothers, be our neighbours. But if you come here with that, no, don't want it. Get out. Go. Now, when was the last time anyone in the political class in Britain really had the guts to say that? Not often, and it's to our detriment. But a lot of people notice it now.
That seems perfectly reasonable to me, unlike Morgan, who seems to think everyone has a God-given right to move here. But I do think Morgan is a bit out of order here and going a bit over the top. This was Robinson 11 years ago.
And when we talk about Islamophobia,
There is Islamophobia, of course there is. There is Islamophobia because our police force actually were too scared to tackle grooming and rape of our youth because of fear of being called a racist. That's Islamophobia, not the Islamophobia. Phobia is an irrational fear, okay? It's quite rational to fear female genital mutilation of 2,000 British Muslim girls every year, terrorism like happened to Lee Rigby. Like 2 days ago, 6 Muslims who were sentenced to 19, 20 years each because they were planning to blow up the English Defence League. Due to the blasphemy law within the Quran. Okay, there's a link to all these things. The same with the Muslim grooming gangs. As a common denominator, you have to look for what the issue is, what links them all. They're all Muslim.
I get confused when you say Islam, and then you say Islamist, and then you say Muslim, because they're different things.
They are. I'm from Luton Town.
I'm going to talk to...
I'm from Luton Town. I know so many Muslims, yeah, and I'm sitting here. If you take these people's careers away and their money away, they won't be sitting there. I'm a volunteer, okay? There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. What has happened to me through having this opinion and speaking out the way I do, it's destroyed my life, it's destroyed my wife's life, it's destroyed my mother's life. I live with constant death threats. I've got some of them here if you want to read when we talk about a two-tier policing system. I have to wear a bulletproof vest. I've got people wanting to murder me and massacre me.
Well, then stop being a racist and a bigot.
Racist? Can you please explain one thing I've ever said?
I am a British citizen. I was born in this country, and I do not spout off rubbish like you do. Okay?
No, what am I saying that's rubbish?
I haven't got death threats. Do you know why? It's because I'm a nice person.
Please explain.
I want harmony in this country.
If you talk against Islam, you'll have death threats.
You don't have to agree with everything Robinson says or his tactics, but to sit there almost laughing at hearing how his own kids and family get death threats is utterly disgusting. Now, that very same woman is complaining she is getting death threats from Muslims for posting a picture of herself in a bikini. I suppose we can just say, well, don't wear a bikini then. So much for her not getting death threats. Robinson was proved right, and he did try to warn her. No one is saying Robinson is an angel. Clearly, he's not. But Morgan really should do his research if he's going to attack someone so vigorously. The headbutt conviction was apparently because he headbutted an actual neo-Nazi who was trying to infiltrate his movement. Robinson has always said his movement is not about skin colour or race, but the media fails to mention that bit. And he probably gets more death threats than anyone and lives in constant fear, so the idea he's done all this for all these years for money is ludicrous. Especially coming from Morgan, who earns his fortune by creating outrage, by pitting everyone against each other for views. Only recently, this guy was convicted for making a rap video where he said he wanted to shoot Tommy Robinson. Morgan says even Nigel Farage distances himself from Robinson. Nigel Farage and a lot of politicians probably agree with Robinson on many levels, but they distance themselves from him because they want to be seen as part of a mainstream respectable political party. They know it could damage them and give their opponents ammunition if they openly supported a working class street activist like Robinson. Without doubt, there are some very unpleasant people that have supported Robinson and attended his rallies in the past. And many of us don't like how he goes about making his points sometimes. But he has been proven right on the grooming gangs scandal. If you want to understand the Robinson phenomenon, just listen to Douglas Murray's brilliant explanation and don't bother with the rantings of Piers Morgan. I'll leave you with that.
Well, I'll tell you what I make of it. First of all, I mean, it has been the tendency of our country of birth, Great Britain, to always try to deflect attention from this scandal, and in fact, to pour opprobrium on anyone who actually exposed this scandal. I think, for instance, you mentioned I weighed into it a little. I didn't particularly. I reposted today 4 pages of a book I wrote 10 years ago that came out in 2017 called The Strange Death of Europe. And in 4 pages of that book, near the beginning, I wrote about this scandal as emblematic of the way in which Britain, European countries, and the West as a whole were utterly incapable of dealing with any of the downsides of mass immigration and failed integration. And in that, I mentioned the heroic former Labour MP, Anne Cryer, who was a constituency Labour MP for one of the areas where parents had come to her saying what had happened to their daughters. I mean, stories so lurid and appalling that we probably couldn't actually get into the details here. And Anne Cryer, after identifying that in about 2009 and trying to raise the alarm, was not only smeared as an Islamophobe, this is a lifelong left-wing working-class Labour MP, was not only smeared as an Islamophobe and a racist, but required police protection for a period. So this attempt to shoot the messenger, almost literally, was something that has been a consistent aspect of this story. And when I see people now talking about this story and trying to get onto the Tommy Robinson part of it, I can't help thinking it's yet another deflection. Tommy Robinson is a man from a working class background in Luton. There are many things to be said in favour of him and what he's done. There's many things to be said criticising some of his tactics and some of his words and much more. But essentially, he is one of a quite large number, actually, not to be underestimated, a large number of working class people in this country who saw this happen to relatives of theirs, who had girls in their families who were drugged and raped by Muslim gangs. And when they went to the police, they didn't get any help. When they went to the council, they didn't get any help. When they went to their MPs, generally they didn't get any help. If they organised a protest movement, so-called anti-fascist groups would immediately say, far right, because, of course, if you're working class in our country and you don't like the mass rape of young white girls, you're, of course, necessarily must be a Nazi. All of this was done to make it utterly impossible for anybody to discuss this, and particularly to crack down as hard as possible on anyone who was white and working class and felt voiceless. And instead of giving these people any sympathy or any hearing, most of the media, most of the political class turned away. And I'm afraid what we've been seeing in recent days is one perfectly predictable repercussion of that. You can keep a scandal this big down for only so long. And of course, there are Labour MPs and others at the moment who are saying, but don't you know we've had lots of inquiries into this? Don't you know lots of people have gone to jail? And there is some truth in that. First of all, the inquiries meant very little in the end. They did very little to sort out this problem. Secondly, the number of accusations of rapes, the number of girls in all of these towns who say they've been raped, means that the proportion of men who have actually been convicted, often already released, but convicted and went to prison, can only be a fraction of the number of people who actually took part in this obscene sexual crime. And so this sort of idea of like, it's okay, guys, we've got it. It's total bunk. And, you know, I think that part of the thing we've seen in recent days is very reminiscent, and I've written about this again in the past, it's very reminiscent of something that Britain is astonishingly good at, which is avoiding primary problems by trying to highlight people who, as it were, who mention the problem, or mention the problem in an inadequate way, or in a way that isn't to everyone's taste or more, and then everyone talks about them, and it's horribly reminiscent of the way in which you'll remember that for about some 40 years or so, it was said in Britain that we couldn't discuss mass immigration, legal or illegal, in Britain, because Enoch Powell gave one speech in 1968. And actually all it was a terrific way for the political class and others to avoid talking about mass migration. They say, Enoch made it impossible. And it's awfully reminiscent, this. People saying, Tommy Robinson made it impossible. That's absolute nonsense. If you have a courageous media, if you have just independent-minded people, if you have councillors who know how to do their darn job, and policemen who are not, as the reports and commissions found out, incredibly scared of being accused of institutional racism, which of course has been hanging over the police force for some 40 years now, 30 years certainly. If all these people have been doing their jobs, it wouldn't matter what Tommy Robinson had or had not said. All of this is a deflection. It's always this way. Let's leap at one of the people who has responded to this and say they did it wrong, and then we can keep on not addressing the question. And I think this is a uniquely British vice.